how to create a simple budget. Listen up. Go on to my Instagram at April Rogers Peterson. You'll see it listed below. And you can pull open a fun, colorful budget to follow along with. Now understand, when I started this serious journey to get out of debt, I still had $42,000 left to pay, mostly student loans. And I was at a job that I'd gone to school for, but was right around the poverty line. And I had tried budgeting for years, and I just kept running out of money before month. When I got serious about paying off my debt, I was able to pay off all $42,000 in just over a year using the system I'm going to share with you today. I got some good mentorship. I got into a good program. I went and took the Dave Ramsey course, read his books, and started applying aggressively. And I remember the day I paid my last student loan payment. I'm sitting there in my little tiny office and I'm just overwhelmed because my student loan calculator had said that I would be an old grandma, 62 years old, when I would pay my last student loan payment if I paid everything on time. And so I'm so grateful that I listened to wiser people than me at the time. So here you go. In 2011, I was making about $1,200 bring home net income per month, and my expenses were close to, well, twice that. You can see why I was going backwards. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is figure out how much income you have coming in every month. Now you might have steady work plus maybe some variable income, maybe driving Uber or serving at a restaurant. So you want to be conservative. On your lowest month, how much do you have coming in? Then you're going to want to take 90 days of expenses, divide by 3 so that you get the average expense monthly. Take your income minus your expenses. What do you have left? Most people, this is a negative number. Now that's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's a good starting point. It's awareness. Good for you. We're off to a good start. Now, here's how I got out of debt so quickly. I dramatically increased my income and I reduced my expenses. Unfortunately, today the cost of living has gone up so much that most people don't have a lot of expenses to reduce. Maybe they can go out a few less times, maybe buy a few less clothes, but honestly, life is expensive. If you haven't watched our video on the cost of living entitled, "Is College Really Worth It?" highly suggest you watch that one. Okay, so once I increased my income, I divided up my month into 4 weeks. The 1st through the 6th, the 7th through the 14th, 15 through 22, 23 through 30. And I wrote out my income. Let's say it's $2,000 a month. And then my little side job. Let's say I'm consistently on a conservative week bringing in an extra $300. Then I write the bills that are due from the 1st through the 6th. So let's say that's rent, money into my savings. I'm always going to pay myself first. Maybe I have a utility bill and my cell bill. 7th through 14, let's say that was student loan number 1. Maybe that was my car payment. Maybe that was another utility, and so on and so forth. So one thing that's really helpful is if you have a bill that's due, say, on the 8th, but it would be better if it came out on the 24th, just call the company and have them move that date. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to deduct your expenses. So I'm going to deduct rent, savings, utilities, and cell from this $2,000 here, and I'm left over with $780. Week number 2, I deduct. I'm left over with $200. Week 3, $100, and week 4, $300. Now from all of this leftover money from my fixed expenses, I'm going to deduct variables. what are variable expenses? This is things like groceries, eating out, entertainment, subscriptions, alcohol, vacations, getting your nails done. All the things that if you had to live on a bare bones budget, you would either eliminate or reduce. This is also where most people get into trouble because their variable expenses are too high for the income that they're making. Now again, my number one suggestion is not just reducing expenses, but dramatically increasing your income. So, how to reduce your variable expenses? Well, after you've gone through 3 months and figured out what you spend, let's say that you spend $400 a month on groceries, but you'd like to get it down to say $300. How do you do that? Well, you can either do a cash envelope system where you take $300 a month and you divide by 4 weeks, and then that's how much you have to spend each week. So from each paycheck, you're going to take $75 out by going to the bank, withdrawing cash, and putting it in an envelope in your bag labeled groceries. You might also do that for eating out, all of those variable expenses. For me personally, I like to use my text. So I will send myself a text message every time I spend money. So for example, this morning, I went to the coffee shop and I got my favorite coffee. Num num. And it cost me $5 with the tip. Always remember to tip. And I opened up my text and sent myself a text that said I spent $5 of my budget, of my slush fund for the month. I know that I have X amount of dollars allotted. I look at the date in the month, and that lets me know how much I have left to spend. Okay, so once you've deducted all of your fixed expenses, then you deduct your variable expenses. And again, like I said, you could use the envelope system or text on your phone, or maybe the Every Dollar app from Dave Ramsey. But your goal is to try and come up with a zero-sum budget, or if you have money left over, you can make budgeting into a game. So for example, at the end of week 1, if we don't go over any of our spending allotment, we have a total of $155 left over. Yoo-hoo! Week 2, we spent it all. Week 3, we have an extra $345. Week 4, we spent it all. So at the end of the month, we have an extra $500 left over that we could put into an account that we could just allow to build maybe a more extravagant vacation. Maybe this is where we would consider possibly upgrading our car, right? $150 a month car payment is probably close to paid off or a hoopty. We might even consider buying a home, although might I recommend you look into duplex, triplex, quadplex, especially if you're still single. That way you can rent part of it out. Or maybe you're looking to buy something really cool, right? You've been browsing REI and you've seen, some sort of outdoor equipment, a cool backpack, a cool new tent, maybe some zip lining equipment, some sporting equipment that you've had your eye on, maybe a pair of shoes, ladies, that are a couple $100. And these are what I would call the splurge account. So every month you take what's left over. Now don't forget savings, right? Always pay yourself first. Might I recommend 10% at least of your bring home net income. But this would be the splurge account, right? The things that you're not going to feel guilty for because you've done such a great job at budgeting all month. High five. Or let's say you were like me and rather than splurging for about a year, you took this extra money and you threw it at debt, right? You paid off your $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of student loan debt and freed up an extra $360 a month to put towards a home or a nicer car, a nicer vacation. Maybe to reduce your expenses, you eliminated some subscriptions or gave up cable for a year. What would you do to get completely debt-free? And what a fun game to do it in a year. Hopefully that was helpful. Now for those of you who are math people, you're wondering, how did she get out of $42,000 of debt in 1 year only making 50 grand? Well, once I had the confidence to make 50 grand, I was able to upgrade to 100 grand in my job. And then I added a little side business on top of that. And together with an aggressive snowball debt plan and some mentorship and videos like this one and listening to people who had already been there, done that, I was able to get debt free in 1 year. I remember the day I made my last student loan payment for 7 grand. And I just sat there in my tiny little office and my shoulders went from here to here and I could finally breathe, because my loan calculator had said that I wouldn't pay that silly loan off until I was an old grandma. And so I'm just so grateful. And I want you to know that I believe in you, that I know that you can do this. Will you have to give up a few things? Yes. Will you have to be tired? Will you have to work hard? Yes. And I know that you can do that. Remember, a better you is a better planet. Mwah!